I think this will be a really, really good, very, very quick, so it's going to be like lots of little lightning talks, so stay with me. But we're going to go through some services that I use on Azure when I'm at hackathons that I think are just quick and easy to get in there, bring your data in and start exploring it. So I kind of wanted to just share them with you. I'll try and do a couple of little demos, show you some stuff that I've built using it, but then I'll also follow up with a short link. So if you're interested in that product and want to know more, I've given you basically the next steps, so how to set it up, or a demo, or a tutorial, or something like that. So definitely, I'd have your cameras at the ready, potentially, for some of the short links. Okay, so up first is my staple item in any data hack, and that's Azure Notebooks. So does anyone in here code in Python? Put your hand up, awesome. And do you use Jupyter Notebooks? Yeah, cool. So Azure Notebooks is basically is powered by Jupyter. So we are a hosted version of Jupyter that sits in the cloud. So I can go to something called notebooks.azure.com. I can sign in with my Azure account, and then I can create my projects below here. I actually did a project, you're going to see it actually a few times in this, on, does anyone watch Love Island? I know, say it with pride. I know you all do. I'm a big fan of Love Island. So what I did is I pulled together some historical data sets on some of the stuff that happened in there and started to analyse actually what makes it that the people who win, why do they win, where are they from, who are they, what do they do, stuff like that. So what I did was I basically uploaded a CSV file into my Jupyter space, into my Azure Notebook space, and I can create the same thing that we always see in Jupyter. But one of the nice pieces is you can actually run it on free compute running in the cloud. So you don't have to leverage your own device and your own local compute and your own storage. This is all sitting in the cloud. And you can actually also assign it, if you need it in here, to GPU compute, a more powerful compute that sits in the cloud. So if I go run on free compute here, all of a sudden we'll open up my project and we can see this is the normal Jupyter interface that we all expect. And then if I open my Python notebook, we can see it's that REPL interaction. So read, evaluate, print, loop is what REPL stands for. So if I go Control Enter, I can actually run these cells and I can get them to print out what they're up to. So give it a second to kick in. But this is obviously just normal Python code, bring in any packages. There is a command line interface that sits in the notebook service as well. So if you want to specifically pip install anything, you can absolutely do that. You can also do it in a requirements file if you need to. So I found this really useful to just start exploring some of my data, printing simple graphs, and actually starting to really get in there, what is going on in this data and what can I use it for. And you can just carry on down and down. I did correlation graphs between different variables. I did pie charts on how skewed the data was. Fun fact, majority of the contestants on Love Island are from the south of the UK. Actually 60% of historical contestants are from the south. Also, if you pair up and you're the first person to enter the villa, you've got more chance of winning given the historical data. Fun. Okay, so Azure Notebooks, it is basically, I tried to sum up, quickly get up and running. If you're running Jupyter Notebooks and you want to code in Python, if you want to explore your data, it's a real neat way to just use cloud storage and cloud compute. So aka.ms Azure Notebooks-hack. Awesome. What's up next? Azure Storage Explorer. So any data hack equals data, and there's going to be a data set somewhere, and potentially quite a lot of data as well, right, in some of the hacks that we do. So the Azure Storage Explorer, if you have an Azure Storage account, so let's do the Love Island example again. So I've got my Love Island project in the Azure portal, and I have this storage account here. This is just Azure Blob Storage, which is object storage. So I can save images in there, I can save CSVs in there, I can save unstructured data in there, and just be able to access it neatly. It's also almost low-cost storage, so as we're in a hack and we don't want to be spending lots and lots of money at this point, we just want to be trying things out quickly. So inside blobs or objects, I can create containers or folders. And I can actually save different bits of data in there. So I've got a data folder, and that's got all my different data sets, of CSVs and Excel files and Power BI files. And then I've also got contestant images, so just JPEGs, and I'm actually going to show you how I can bring them into other forms of the services. So that's great, and this is in the UI, but a lot of people say to me, well, how am I uploading and downloading and sharing all of this data? I highly recommend downloading something called the Azure Storage Explorer. Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. It's available on Mac, Linux and Windows, so you can download the one for your OS. And basically it just gives you a nice UI where you can access some of your data storage. You click the little Add Account button. You can choose to add the whole Azure account, or say one of you in the team has the data stored in one place. They can actually share a connection string with you, and then you can just put the connection string in, and then you're just connected to that blob storage account, so you don't need to be connected to the whole Azure subscription. Once you're connected, if we have a look at that Love Island project again, cancel, there we go. And we open it up, we can see I've got my blob containers, we can see the same containers, but this time, when I click on them, I now get all of these options at the top as well. So I've got all of these different things. I can basically just click on one, I can download it, I can add new things, I can upload new things, I can copy URLs, and I can also manage the access to it as well. So anything I can do in the Azure portal, I can also do here, and I use this probably a little bit more, as it's just easy access on my machine and downloading it to my machine if I need to. So that's Azure Storage Explorer. I want to share data and have an easy way to access it. It's like point number one, isn't it, in a data hack? How do I get a hold of the data? So if you go to aka.ms/storageexplorer-hack, you'll notice there's going to be a little trend on all the URLs are all going to end in -hack. So yeah, I will let you take a quick picture of that. Awesome. Okay, on to the exciting bit. So we've talked about notebooks. I want to explore my data quickly. I just need to know what's going on in there. We've talked about how do we get access to our data, how do we share it quickly, and how do we just use a nice UI. We don't want to always be coding. Sometimes we like to do that, but sometimes it's just easier not to. But what about machine learning on Azure? So given some of the example challenges, I am going to just revel in showing you some of this. We're going to show you 3 different services: Azure Cognitive Services, Automated Machine Learning, and the Azure Visual Interface. So option 1, it's Prebuilt AI. So say you have an idea and you just want to use a sentiment classifier that's available in the cloud, and you just call it with a REST API and get the data back. You don't need any machine learning knowledge to actually use these, just a developer that can call it with any code. So let me show you what this looks like. So the cognitive services, if you go to Azure Cognitive Services on Google, it'll bring you to this Cognitive Services directory page. And on here, what you can see is we have different APIs for all sorts of different things, from computer vision to facial recognition to handwriting recognition, video, and also actually something that's really new, and I absolutely love it because so many people talk to me about it. It's actually being able to submit forms, paper forms, and it being able to learn and extract data into a JSON format for you from handwritten forms. It's something that was asked for so much, and it came out at Build in April, so only a couple of months ago. But what I can do is I can literally try these on the website. So if I click the little demo button, I can go down to this Analyze Image, and what I can see is actually, let's choose a different image, we'll choose the skyscraper one. And what it can do is it can do object detection and image classification. So what it will give you is this in a JSON format, where it basically says, oh, I've got some objects, and this object is a building, and another building, another building. But it can also say things like, okay, well, what tags associate with this image? Things like sky, outdoors, tower, city, cityscape. And then we also do, here it is, we try to do a caption for every image. So we try to give you actually a full phrase sentence that makes sense. This is a black and white photo of a city. And it will give you obviously the confidence value, conscious of the confidence value. Some pictures it won't do as well on, right? Because it's maybe a bit specialized. we've trained a generic computer vision model for anyone just to be able to access and send pictures to. How do you do this in the code, though? Has anyone used Postman before? Postman's a really great tool. I quite like it. Again, it's quite GUI based. To just be able to call a REST API and set up your queries and be able to edit them fairly simply. So what we can see here is I can set up this text analytics. So I'm going to use our text analytics API for this one. And what I've done is I've got a post query. I've set up my cognitive services URL. So it's sitting in our North Europe data center. That's in Dublin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call the text analytics API. And I'm not going to call key phrases right now. What I'm going to call is the sentiment option. And then what I've done in the headers, I just need to pass it my key. Okay, and the content type is application.json. And then in the body, I've given it basically some session feedback that I found. So this was a great session. I learnt a lot of things. I couldn't see the projector properly and the room was too warm. All these kinds of things. If I click send, it's going to call off to the cloud. It's going to come back to me. I've not trained any machine learning here. I'm just calling a REST API. And if we go down to the bottom, we can see the documents stored by ID. So the first one, it says, okay, it's a 0.95. That means it's positive. So closer to 0 is negative, closer to 1 is positive. So if we look back at that one, what was it? This was a great session. I learnt a lot of things. But what about, so we've got this third one here, 0.25, so ID 3. Not enough examples, too basic, and not how the session abstract described. So that's a more negative sentiment, and it's come back with 0.25. So I think there was a sentiment classification example in there. You might want to try this against it first, and then look at to see whether you need to build a more bespoke algorithm. So that was the cognitive services. I want to quickly analyze my data, and I'm not looking to build my own machine learning algorithm. If it's something like sentiment analysis or key phrase extraction, it's almost a solved problem, apart from in scenarios where you need to customize it, given language changes, given things, for example, the legal industry is a good example. They have a lot of words that we don't use in just sort of general language, and we might not be able to understand them, and that's when you might need to build something a bit more bespoke. What about customizing Prebuilt AI? So I still don't want to get into the code, but is there something else I can use? Well, I hear you say, yes, there is. So say you're doing image classification. I think there might have been an example on that one as well. Basically, we have something called the custom vision.ai service. So basically what this is you can upload a very small amount of images to train an image classification, because normally you need tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of images to build an image classification algorithm. In this, you actually only need 30 to 40 per category. So it's a lot smaller. For those out there who do machine learning, it's actually built on transfer learning. So we have underlying computer vision models, and you will build that final layer of that neural network, basically, in order to specialize the model on your categories. But one of the nice things here, if I sign in, it'll load some of my projects. Again, it's all GUI based, so that allows us to very, very quickly in a hack just build something out rather than always having to code. Let's do the hot dog or not. Anyone watch Silicon Valley? Hot dog or not? Yeah. So what did I do here? Hot dog, not hot dog. I've got two classes, and I want to know whether there's a hot dog in the image or a not hot dog in the image. So what I did was, if we click on the not hot dog, the hot dog image, we can see I've uploaded just a few different images of all different types of hot dog, and vice versa. If we go to not hot dog, we've got things like spaghetti and burgers and sandwiches and all of that kind of stuff. I literally click add images, find my images, add a tag, which you just type in, and then hit send. It uploads them, it tags them all, and then you click this green train button at the top. It'll go off, build your machine learning model for you, and then you can very quickly go in there and just test it. So if I find, let's go Google Images, and we get a picture of a hot dog. we enter the URL. Oh. Maybe it wasn't happy with that URL. But it will go off and it will call off to your image classification model, and it will come back and it will say it is a hot dog, and I'm pretty sure it's a hot dog. Not sure why that one's not working. We'll come back to that one. But custom vision, nice, simple way basically of quickly building an image classification model without hundreds of thousands of images, without 100 lines of code, and actually it's already hosted for you. So you just call it using an API again. So the same way we use Postman for the ones Microsoft builds, you can use Postman for the ones you build as well. So that's customized Prebuilt AI. Option 3, complete custom AI. I know we've got some avid machine learning people in the room. You're Python or R savvy, you're well into it, you know exactly what models you want to use and stuff like that. And that's all great, and you might have some sample code with you, and you can absolutely use that in our Azure Machine Learning Service, or you can just run it in the Azure Notebooks. It's a win. But actually, we've got a couple of other things that I really wanted to show you that might help you in a hack environment. So we have this thing called the Azure Machine Learning Service, and that covers about 3 different things that you can do in there, and I'm going to show you 2 of them. So one of them is actually called our visual interface. So it's available just here when you set up an Azure Machine Learning Service environment. And basically, when you open it, it's our visual interface to actually build up machine learning algorithms. So instead of me having to code everything, what I can actually do is just bring in, so I can actually upload a data set as well. So upload your data set. I can click and drag different things onto the surface, and then I can actually interact with them. So for example here, if I zoom in a little bit, we can see I've selected columns in the data set. If I click on that, we'll see that over here, I can actually just do things like, oh, I don't need that column, I do need this column, maybe I clean the missing values. And what I can do is I can visualize the data at every single step in my algorithm. So I can see this is about predicting car prices, a nice basic one. But basically we've got Audis, Alfa Romeos, and we say whether it's a hatchback or a convertible. We say how big it is, we say how many wheels it's got, I don't know, all that kind of stuff, RPM, MPG, and whatnot. And then we've got this price column. So I want to build a regression algorithm that says, given the car, can I predict the price? So what I do, as we all do as good machine learning people, we split our data into training and testing sets. So the training data set that comes out port 1 and the testing data set that comes out of port 2. So the testing data set's never been seen before. But also, one of the best bits here, if you go down to this machine learning section, just here, we can see, I can click on initialize model. I can say I'm doing a regression problem. And then I can just use boosted decision tree, decision forest, linear regression, or a neural network. I'm a big fan of a boosted decision tree. I do think it helps numeric data that is quite partitioned into categories and stuff like that. And so you can just use that as is out the box. If you know how to set the parameters, set the parameters. It's a dark art, but go there if you wish. And basically you can just link them up. So I can literally just click and drag from here and connect it to that model. Also, once we start to evaluate the model and we go into, say, score model once we've run it, and we head over, we can see actually this is what it predicted. And so a car that was sort of 9,600, we actually predicted it close to 11,000. We're about £1,700 out at the moment. So what would we do? We want to get more data. We want to do more feature engineering. We want to do the next step. We want to do hyperparameter tuning, all of that kind of stuff. But in a hack, we don't always need to do that. What we need to do is prove that the concept is possible and show something as quickly as possible. So I'd highly recommend looking at the Azure Machine Learning interface. We can actually create, again, another API. So we'll host this model in the cloud for you. And that creates this predictive experiment where you have a web service input and a web service output. So again, back to Postman, and we can call the model that we built, click, 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 click and drag, basically. So that was the visual interface, sorry. And one other thing, so if you are definitely within the code, and actually you're like, no, I don't need to click and drag and build the whole thing. What I want to do is I actually want to optimize what algorithm is the best to use. Because that's the biggest question, right? When you're building models, you choose one algorithm and you test against it, and that takes a bit of time. And then you write more code and you choose another algorithm, and then you run that and test it, and then you compare it, and then you do another one, and you have to test them all out. Well, what if there was some machine learning applied to the idea of choosing algorithms? Well, we have that for you. There's something called automated machine learning. And we know that in a machine learning problem, we like we said, we go data, and then we have to experiment over and over again. We've only got 1.5 days by the time you leave this talk, so we don't really have time to be building a million different models. We actually want it to do it as quickly as possible. So I've done a little video for this one because I have sped it up. This one takes a bit longer because we're going to run through many, many different algorithms. But we're basically in the same place, that Azure Machine Learning workspace where we saw visual interface on the left as well. But this time we're going to use something called automated machine learning. I've run lots of different experiments, but this is a customer churn problem. So I'm going to do a classification problem whether a customer will churn or not. So I'm going to create an experiment. I can do this in the UI, nice and quick. Give it a name. Select the compute. I'm going to select actually my GPU cluster here, which is elastic compute, machine learning compute we've called it, so it only spins up when you need it and it spins down when it's not in use. I select my blob storage account that's attached and it automatically brings in my data set. So we can see, I can actually say, oh, I don't need that field within my data set. I'm going to do a classification task and I just tell it what it needs to focus on. What are we trying to classify? We're trying to classify the true or false churn. I can then set metrics so that it doesn't run for 1,000,000 years, but it can if you want it to. So I can say don't run over 60 minutes or 30 minutes or 20 minutes. I can say actually I want you to do 20 different iterations every time you run the model, or I want you to do 5, or I want you to do 105. And I just click start, and what it's going to do, it's going to go off and it's going to try lots of different algorithms that it thinks will work well for your data set. So as we can see here, it starts with 1, so it's the max abs scalar with stochastic gradient descent. Well worth looking these up as it comes up, lots of interesting ones that it tries. And it will try them with different parameters, and it will run your data against them multiple times. And then it will start to do, okay, well, which one's the best accuracy? Which one is the one that runs the quickest? And you can actually decide from there what's most useful to you. You can also do all of this in code. So if you're more comfortable sitting with Python code, you can do exactly the same thing in there. So I'm in my Azure notebooks again. And basically, I just need to set up my config in code format, exactly the same steps that was basically in the UI. And then we can see it runs again through all those different examples. It does ensemble algorithms, so that's pulling two different algorithms together. And then we can also just run it and we get our output results. So you can work in code or you can work in the UI. It's not just a hackathon tool, it's used widely within industry as well. But I find it super useful and quick to use in this kind of format. Okay. So what did we have there? I want to build an experiment with my bespoke machine learning models. I want to know what the algorithms are. I want to build out that experiment myself. But I also want to do it quickly and potentially just visually if it makes it easier, and actually ask the question more of my data than I do of my code. So if you go to Visual Interface-Hack for the GUI where you click and drag items and connect them, or go to Automated ML-Hack to learn more about that process as well. Okay. Power BI, has anyone used Power BI before? Just a few people. Power BI is an interesting one. I really, really like it, and I used it for my Love Island project. So, back to Love Island, my bad. So what did I do? I basically connected to my data in the Power BI desktop, or you can do it online in the web browser as well. And what I did was I started to build out just really quick things like pie charts, or number cards, or bar charts. And I can add in all the basically different columns that I have in my data sets. I just click and drag them into the axis, the legend, and the value. And I can start to just manipulate, okay, what's going on in my data. But one of the best things about this was I was actually able to share this with a lot of people, everyone in my team. It didn't matter whether they were technical or not. You don't have to be technical to use and consume Power BI. You can be a non-technical person. So if you're saying you're all working on construction data and building data, and it might not always be the data analyst that's looking at this data, actually, can we get the construction people to look at it? Can they interact more and have more responsibility over the different KPIs they're trying to hit and stuff like that? So it was very, very easy to just sort of add a new page, bring on a bar chart, so we can do a contestant name by the day that they joined the villa or something like that. And basically it'll pull out a nice little graph for us, and I can go, okay, so what have we got going on here? So the day they joined the villa, so Wes and Niall and Samira joined the villa first in 2018 and stuff like that. So I can just start telling very, very quick stories. Like I said, we don't have a lot of time, so what do we want to do? We don't want to have to code all these things. We can just click and drag. There's also, like I said, an option to view it in the web browser, so let's have a quick look at that. So these are my reports, exactly the same ones. So actually, if one person in the team is working on Power BI Desktop, they can publish it to the web, and you can share that with other people as well. And what we can see here, let's have a look at who might be the winner for 2019. So I've got all the different people who are in this year. And I can add filters. So we actually said, didn't we, that people from the south are more likely to win. So Joe's gone out, so we can't have that one. Lucy's still in by the skin of her teeth. Amy, Anna, Sheriff's not in either. Elma. So we can basically just start to explore the data and ask those interesting questions of it. But I could be anyone here. I'm just in a web browser. So powerbi.microsoft.com. If you want to take a very, very short course that's just going to give you some of the basics to get going, if you go to aka.ms/powerbi-hack, and then my final one in 2 minutes. Okay. Next one's up, Microsoft Power Apps. Has anyone ever heard of Microsoft Power Apps? Sweet, yeah. Power Apps is a really interesting one. As a developer, and then I moved into data science, I was like, sorry, what? You want me to click and drag and create an app now? I was like, no. I will just code it myself. No, I'm converted. So basically, Microsoft Power Apps is a nice GUI again to very, very quickly to be able to create apps and actually have them on your phone. So for example, I have this wardrobe app that I built. So it's going to open Power Apps on my phone. And basically, I can go into any shop, take a picture of an item, it'll classify it, is it a dress, is it shoes, is it whatever, and it'll store it in my Azure storage account. And it's just a really, really simple app. I didn't need bells and whistles, it's just for me. So I can basically take a quick picture, I can give it a name, I click send, and it sends it to an Azure Blob storage account in the cloud. To code all of that and set up all the framework and set up all of the different classes and all that kind of stuff would take quite a while. But actually, in a visual interface, you can simply go to things like insert. I can insert a button. It'll insert a button for me. And then I can start to go to things like advanced. And I can say, well, on select, I actually want you to get the Azure Blob storage packages, and I want you to push this to Azure and stuff like that. So it's a very, very quick way to just be able to bring on quick icons, a data table, some controls to filter. In data science projects, the main purpose I've used this for and talked about it a lot is actually for the usage of your machine learning algorithms and your data analysis. We all revel in percentages and decimal places and specific precision metrics and stuff like that. But I'm going to be honest with you, the rest of the world does not dabble in that. They don't like it. So what the best thing here is I actually use this to show a whole end-to-end. How does machine learning integrate into our actual lives rather than it just being a percentage precision metric? So I was able to show very quickly that I could put an image classification model into an end-to-end process that I actually use within my life. Very, very quickly. In fact, low code / no code at all used. So I highly recommend taking a look at Power Apps if maybe you're the person in a team that's pulling together the story. So I want to show how my insights and models could be used in real life. So if you go to aka.ms/powerapps-hack, that is a very, very short course that's going to show you how to create a Canvas app, which is what I just created. And it'll show you how you can just basically put it onto your phone as well. It's part of Office, so if you have Office as part of your organisational sort of subscription and stuff, you can actually get access to Power Apps. So it's well worth taking a look to see if that's there for you. Okay, that is all from me. That was fast and a lot of stuff. So here's a few links again that we talked through. Azure Notebooks, let's explore the data real quick. What's in there? What columns are in there? What correlations are in there? What counts are in there? Azure Cognitive Services, you don't have to build everything yourself. We're only here for a day and a half. We don't expect the world to be delivered, but what we could show is actually the opportunity around sentiment analysis, computer vision, video recognition if we had video data. Power Apps, end-to-end. Let's build a front end and actually show people how you would physically use it. Going to be honest, I think you get marked on like around your presentation, around the end-to-end idea, around the implication of what that is to the business. Power Apps could be a really interesting way of looking at that. Power BI, one of my fave tools. Basically, bring your data in and just start exploring it. But build a dashboard, build a story, what's going on in there. We don't always actually have to go to machine learning for everything. Data analytics is pretty powerful. And then machine learning becomes at the next step. And then finally, Azure Machine Learning. I put the visual interface one in there. I had to choose between the three. And I think that one is a really neat one for hacks. I've had a lot of feedback that people really enjoy using it. And it's a fairly quick one to pick up as well. You can kind of like figure it out as you go along. So thank you very much for your time. I know I've taken you away from your hacking. If you have any questions or you want an Azure Pass, I'm the lady to come to. So yeah, thank you very much for joining me.